All right, picture this. You're managing a massive, multi-billion-dollar offshore wind project. What do you think is your single biggest financial risk? It's probably not what you're thinking. It's not a faulty turbine. It's not some supply chain headache. Nope. It's the ocean. Just the raw, unpredictable power of the sea itself. Every single wave, every gust of wind, that's a variable that can absolutely make or break your budget. So that leads to the big question, right? If you're that project manager, how in the world do you de-risk your investment against that? I mean, how do you even begin to quantify it? You're literally building this incredible piece of engineering in one of the toughest environments on the planet, and you have to protect it from the very force you're trying to capture for energy. Well, the answer lies in a really cool, specialized field that actually flips the script. It turns all that environmental uncertainty into a strategic advantage. And that's what we're diving into today, the Metocean Playbook. Okay, first things first, we've got to frame this problem the right way. We're not just talking about, dealing with the weather. This is way bigger. We're talking about engineering for a powerful, constantly changing environment. Think about it this way. You would never, ever build a skyscraper in an earthquake zone without deeply understanding the seismic risks, right? That'd be crazy. Well, Metocean is exactly that, but for the ocean. It is the absolute essential environmental intelligence you need before a single piece of steel even gets near the water. So, how does all this intelligence actually become a practical blueprint? This is where we get down to brass tacks, moving from a big idea to a real strategy that has a direct, measurable impact on your bottom line. Okay, so what exactly is Metocean? Let's get a clear definition. It's a technical discipline that's all about quantifying weather and sea conditions. We're talking about wind, waves, currents, water levels, the whole shebang. And the goal is to accurately figure out how all that will impact everything from the structural design of a turbine right down to the daily schedule of a maintenance ship. And this brings us to probably the most important principle in this entire playbook. It's actually really simple. If you invest in high-quality Metocean data at the very start of a project, you are going to save so much more money down the line. It's the ultimate measure twice, cut once, but for building massive stuff in the ocean. So, a good Metocean strategy really breaks down into 3 connected steps. First, you've got data collection. That means actually getting instruments out in the water or running some pretty sophisticated computer models. Second is data management, making sure all that raw data is cleaned up, quality checked, and actually usable. And finally, you have the analysis. This is where you turn all that information into the key insights that drive your actual engineering and operational decisions. Okay, so what does this look like in the real world, across the entire life of a project? Because, and this is super important, Metocean isn't just some report you get once and then file away. It's a living, breathing part of the project from day one all the way to the very end. So here's the typical journey of an offshore project. You can see it all laid out from picking the site to development, design, installation, all the way to taking it apart decades later. The key thing to get here is that Metocean plays a crucial role at every single one of these stages, no exceptions. In those really early phases, it's all about doing the homework up front. You'll start by looking at existing studies, sure, but the real key is to get an on-site measurement campaign going as soon as humanly possible. The goal? You need to collect at least a full year of data. That's because you have to capture all the seasonal changes. This data then becomes your starting point, a sort of conservative baseline that guides your first designs and helps you get your permits. And this is where the financial impact gets just staggering. The guide we're drawing from puts it perfectly. If your initial data is shaky or uncertain, you have no choice but to over-engineer your turbine foundations just to be safe. Now, that extra cost, that over-conservatism, gets multiplied by every single turbine in your wind farm. We could be talking hundreds of turbines. So better data isn't just nice to have, it directly slashes that massive cost. Now, as the project grows up a bit, the way you use this data changes. During the installation phase, for example, you're using historical data to calculate how much weather downtime to expect. That's absolutely crucial for negotiating with your contractors. Then, once it's up and running in the long operations and maintenance phase, you're using real-time data to pinpoint the safest windows to send crews out. It just goes to show how that same core data keeps providing value over and over, all the way to the end. Okay, so we've covered the what and the when. Now let's get into the how. how do you actually build the playbook and structure your team and your strategy to nail this? A winning strategy here really comes down to a clear division of labor, knowing who does what. Your internal project team, they own the big picture, the overall strategy, the budget. And this is critical, making sure the Metocean data plays nicely with the other big pieces, like wind assessment and geoscience. But the super technical, specialized stuff, like, actually deploying the buoys, running complex computer models, and giving you daily weather forecasts, that's almost always handled by expert external contractors. And here's something that is absolutely non-negotiable. Your entire process, everything you do, has to be built on a foundation of recognized international standards. Think ISE and ISO. Sticking to these standards isn't just about good engineering. It's what makes your project certifiable, bankable, and insurable. Let me be blunt. Without this, you're just not going to get the financing, period. One of the biggest and most expensive mistakes a project can make is letting different teams work in their own little silos. That's why coordination is absolutely everything. For instance, your Metocean team and your wind resource team have to use the same underlying models. Your on-site surveys for both should happen at the same time. This is how you guarantee everything is consistent and you avoid really costly contradictions between, say, your engineering designs and your environmental impact assessments. All right, to wrap things up, let's look ahead. This industry is moving at an incredible speed. And you know what that means? The challenges for Metocean experts are getting more and more complex every single year. The next big frontier is floating offshore wind. As these projects push out into deeper and deeper waters, way further from shore, they're running into a whole new set of risks. We're talking about areas that get hit with tropical storms, dealing with complex deep water currents, and the absolute logistical headache of figuring out the weather along super long tow routes for these giant floating platforms. All of this just makes a smart, sophisticated Metocean strategy more critical than it has ever been. And that really leaves us with one final crucial question. Look, the future of offshore energy is definitely in deeper, more challenging waters. The risks are higher for sure, but so are the rewards. So the only question you really need to be asking yourself is your Metocean strategy ready for what's coming next?